So I'm out here at Sugarloaf State Park and I'm really excited to look for these whispering bells. And luckily they have some really great signage and information about them, but they are a fire following flower that pretty much only come up after fires, and they sprouted here after I think it was the 2017 Nuns fire that burned through this area in Sonoma County, and also once again after the 2020 glass fire, which was last year. So I'm really excited to come up here and look for them and do some nature journaling of some fire following flowers. I didn't realize, I should have looked at a topographic map. I didn't realize that, I guess these flowers are on this trail. It's pretty steep here. It's gonna be a little bit of a workout just to get to see these flowers. So far on this lower Bald Mountain trail, I'm noticing in these areas that burned in this sort of live oak forest area, there's a ton of these invasive annual plants coming back, and they seem to be dominating some of these invasive annual grasses. Lots of milk thistle. I'm not sure about this vetch. I think this is a vetch. It's something in the bean family. I'm not sure if that one is a native one. There's that other vetch. Pretty sure that one's not native. And lots of this thistle right here. Actually, a couple types of thistle and thistle relatives. So I think this is the milk thistle or the Italian thistle. Tons of that. There's also this sow thistle. Lots of that. Look at the stand of it. So just because it burnt here doesn't necessarily mean it automatically turns it into some, perfect California native plant. You can see these blue dicks right there trying to compete with the thistle. Good luck. That's some feverfew right there. So quite a bit of invasive plants in this area that burned, and they seem to be doing just fine, coming back real strong after the fire. There's that death camas. That's a native lily right there. Resprouting on that. Look at that resprouting there. Is that a bay? Yeah, look at how that bay is just resprouting real nice. Oh yeah. But mainly what I'm seeing is a real strong response on these invasive annual plants coming back, taking over the spring. And that will be a lot of really good when that dries up. When that all dries up right there, that's going to be serious ground fuel that would allow fire to spread through the area. Hopefully those whispering bells aren't too much farther ahead up this steep trail. All right after I said that, I think I see them. So I think this is one right here. I was expecting like a bigger stand out in the open, but see this flower right here? It's definitely in the Boraginaceae, the borage family, that also has Phacelia in it, and these scorpoid cymes, which are more noticeable on some members of the family than others. They often have sticky leaves, 5 petals, and you can see one there, fused petals there. I'm gonna look for a spot where I can get down and nature journal some of these. See the 5 petals, 5-part symmetry in there, like a star. Have an interesting smell to them. There's a few of them spread out around here. Coming up with this, I think this is deer vetch or deer clover. So let me find a spot where I can nature journal them. So I just moved out of that forested zone back there, mostly coast live oaks. And then now I'm coming out into this open area here, and you can see it's quite different. It's more of a chaparral. This was all toy on, the hollyberry that Hollywood is named after, and you can see it. This is definitely resprouting down here. Look at how this is resprouting, and there's tons of toy on around here. There's also some bay. You can see a bay behind me that's resprouting, and there's some madrones that are resprouting. A few, looks like there were a few Doug firs. This is quite a different ecosystem out here. Fewer of those big invasive grasses. Maybe the soil type changes. Oh, there's some deer right back there. So the deer actually end up getting a lot of food in some of these areas that have burned. There can be a lot more higher quality browse for them. So that is something that is really interesting about these areas that have burned. In this stage of succession of regrowth, they're providing food for a lot of different species that the more mature forests or mature ecosystems don't always provide. So that's one important thing to remember. And there's like 3 or 4 deer right down there feeding. And you can see this area is a lot more open. Oh, there's some cool flowers out here. I think this is the biscuit root. Really cool member of the celery family. If you couldn't guess already, celery family, by that umbel of umbels, that structure of the way the flowers are arranged. And look at these seeds right here. That is so cool. Here's some blue-eyed grass, Cicericum bellum. It's sort of petering out a little bit, or maybe hasn't opened up yet for the day. It looks like this is gonna be, can't tell what that's gonna be. But yeah, seems like some more wildflowers out here in this open spot. I see some more of the blue dicks up here. Nice purple monocot. Yeah, look at these really nice ones. So these are doing pretty well out here. These seem to do quite well after the fires. Here's another flower that likes coming up after the flowers, and this is the death camas. I do see some invasive grasses out in this area. I see some yarrow. Oh, here's some kind of iris coming up. I'm not seeing as many of those whispering bells now. Here's an iris, looks like a rather pale one, sort of like a white iris. Look at this oak resprouting there. Lots of regrowth in this area. This is really exciting. This area here is really beautiful. Oh, look at this hummingbird coming to check me out. There's a lot of life here. This just burned less than a year ago, but there's so much life here already. Here's some yarrow, Akalea. Oh, wow. I don't know what this is, but this looks really cool. Wow, really, really cool. Wow, this is some kind of Asteraceae. Here's one that has, this could be an invasive, but it looks like a California native to me. Here's the seed head right there. I'll have to iNaturalist that one and do some drawing. All right, so it's about time. This is the stage in your nature journaling trip where you could just end up taking pictures the whole time and not whipping out your journal. But there's birds singing. There's a light breeze keeping it nice. There's vistas. The fog is sort of disappearing. It's a perfect time to whip out my nature journal. All right, I'm gonna catch a quick landscapeito right here to get the sort of feeling of this area. Then I'm gonna go back to where some of the whispering bells are because I'm not seeing any of them out here in this opening. I'm not gonna skip my metadata, definitely not. It's especially important if I'm doing some fire following nature journaling to capture the location, the time, the specific trail, things like that will be very important information to have connected with my drawings and nature journaling notes. I'm gonna use my sunglasses to keep the paper from blinding my eyes right now. They're not as good for when you're trying to use your binoculars, but I don't know if I'm gonna be relying heavily on my binoculars today. I'd rather protect my eyes. Okay, so I got my basic metadata in here. I'm gonna put a little bit of a space for a title up here. Or I'll go ahead and write the title in now. Okay, now I'm gonna find a landscape. I'm gonna use my smaller frame because I don't have that much time. So instead of using this really big one, I'm gonna use the smaller one. I think I have the smaller one. So I'm gonna use one of these right here for my frame, for cropping my frame. First, I'm gonna trace it onto my page. So I'll just put it right here underneath my title. So that's basically like my establishing shot. That's what it would be called in cinema. It's also used in graphic novels. To have an establishing shot, it sets the scene. And that's useful information, not just from a narrative standpoint or an artistic standpoint, but from a scientific standpoint as well. So I want to capture sort of a bigger thing, but this is very limiting in what I'll actually be able to fit. The closer you hold it to the eye, the more you can fit in, but that can also be a little bit harder to think about. The further out, the less you can fit in, but the easier it is to figure it out conceptually, and less information to fit on the page. You can see that's about as much information as I tried to capture. Basic information. Now I'm going to continue with the ink from my brush pen and just punch in some of these dark values. That gives me a head start when I go into watercolor, and this will dry faster than my watercolor wash. And remember, you could spend all day doing this landscape painting, but that would be landscape painting and not nature journaling. It's fine to do that sometimes, and that they're obviously compatible and complementary and overlapping practices. I think I'm gonna probably try to do some more. Oh, who's that singing up there? Is that a junco? Or a... Oh yeah, wonderful junco singing up there. So I'm gonna put that into my sidebar, that there's a junco singing and I can see it. I'm gonna try to do a quick sketch of it a la Paula Peters. So I'm starting this sidebar here on the margin. You can see underneath the metadata, basically just a little silhouette, cartoonish version of that junco. And I'll just keep putting bird information down there. Like I hear California towhees also. So I'll just write CA towhee. And that's good. If anything is distracting you, you can just put it down there in that sidebar. Any extra stuff that comes up that you just want to at least capture that basic information, just write a note in the sidebar there. All right, back to my landscape. So this gray pen is slightly water soluble, and I kind of like that. When I come back with my watercolor paints, it will run a little bit, and just enough so that it almost looks like I went straight to watercolor. Okay, I'm not going to add too much details in the background. That's about it that I'll do with the ink. So you can see how I blocked in some of my values there with my Pilot Futayaku brush pen. It's pretty much my favorite drawing tool right now. Right now I'm going to take out one of my water brushes. Luckily I refilled these before I came out. In my John Muir Laws watercolor palette, ready to go. So I'm going to start with the sky. My lightest value is the sky. I'm going to use the cobalt blue. Just get it really nice and diluted, real diluted. I'm going to paint it in and bring it down even a little bit into the background element, so that that mountain will have a little bit of that blue from the sky, the same blue from the sky in the mountain. And that blue lends to the atmospheric perspective. So distant hills will have more of a blue. Oh, there's a lizard down here. So this lizard just appeared right next to me. It's awesome. A western fence lizard. Nature is so distracting, right? So I could switch to checking it out. The patterns are really cool. Ooh, its toes are splayed out in a really interesting way. I could start nature journaling that. But what I'll do for right now is just make a mark about it in my little marginalia spot. Oh, it's sunbathing right in front of me. I might have to draw it later. So I'm just gonna write it down next to where I'm putting my birds. Ooh, I heard quail. Western fence lizard appeared. And I'm actually gonna put a timestamp next to that. It could have just appeared right now because of I've been here long enough that it was not scared anymore. But it could also have to do with the temperature of the day. So I'm gonna write down a timestamp, just 9:26 next to that. In your marginalia, or a really simple way of nature journaling would just to go out and over the course of your hike, write down notes and make really little sketches, like simple cartoon sketches, and then next to those put timestamps. 9:26, 10 a.m., 10:30, and that just will give this whole thing to your whole sequence and narrative structure to your day. Got that first wash, you can barely see the blue on there. This lizard's checking me out like, what's going on here? Not too scared though. Okay, now the weather's good at this point for watercolor drying quickly, so now I'm gonna put in my next layer. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to capture this feeling of fog. I'm not gonna worry about that in my landscape right now. I have notes telling me that there was fog. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little bit of green on my brush and keep it a light value because I want the background to be a more light value than the foreground. Oh my God. I thought there was a runner coming down the trail, but it was that jackrabbit. Did you see that? That was cool. So when you're sitting around nature journaling, sometimes animals will come to you. That's usually what happens with animals. It's harder to go after them. That's why it's good to sit around and paint a landscape, paint a tree, something like that, and let the animals come to you. I'm glad the camera caught that at least a little bit. That was crazy. That was so cool. This might be what happened. I hear some hikers over there. Those hikers probably startled that animal towards me. So a lot of times when you're out in nature, if you want to see mammals, pay attention to where the other humans are, and there's usually this sort of like disturbance wave caused by those people that can scare animals towards you, and if you're in the right place, those animals will be moving away from the other humans. All right, back to my painting. Okay, I decided I am gonna try to capture the fog. So I got sort of that background and midground. Now I'm gonna wait for that to dry a little bit and put in the foreground. Oh, those deer are coming closer too. Wow. Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. One of them is a buck with some crazy antlers growing in. They're still, or wait, maybe they're all bucks. They're all bucks. 3 bucks with fuzzy antlers. One of them has these really gnarled, bumpy antlers. I'm gonna put that in the notes. Hopefully these people aren't hiking down here and gonna scare everything away. So it's called velvet when their antlers are still fuzzy, when they're still growing out, and they have fuzz on them. They say they're in velvet. I kind of want to draw the antlers on this thing. Okay, these people are coming here, so they might scare these deer away. One thing you might not know about me is that I have social anxiety around people finding me nature journaling in weird places. I'm a little bit worried about what they will think I'm doing and self-conscious, but I'm also worried about startling people when I'm in the woods. You might have seen this in the episode where I'm nature journaling next to the lake during the heat wave, and I'm in these bushes next to a lake painting a landscape, and suddenly it looks like there's this naked lady swimming towards me through the lake, and I'm really worried that she's not going to know I'm there, and suddenly she's going to come out of the water and be really startled because there's a weird guy in the bushes talking to himself. So that was starting to happen to me here as these people came walking up. Except I knew I just had to put on my nature journaling ambassador persona.
Morning.
Morning, how's it going?
Good. Painting?
Yeah, nature journaling.
Beautiful.
There's some really, there's 3 nice bucks down there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See the deer down there?
Where?
Right? Maybe not too far.
Oh my God, I don't see him.
There. See right?
Oh yeah.
Their antlers are still in velvet.
Yeah.
Oh
Beautiful.
yeah. Oh my God, that is beautiful. Look at that.
Isn't that beautiful? He's doing a good job.
Dang.
Trying to capture some notes about some of the different. I actually came to nature journal the flowers that come up after the fire.
Mhm.
There's one. It's not out here as much, but there's one that's once you get into the woods there, that has these little yellow flowers, and it only comes up after fires.
Oh.
Sometimes it won't come up for 50 years until there's a fire. Yeah.
So this is all done.
Amateur.
So who is this work for?
I just do this. I have a YouTube channel and I do like nature journaling videos, and then I
Okay.
teach nature journaling and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh,
That is so cool. Their antlers are still.
Yeah, if you can zoom in on the one that's close by, it has really gnarly looking antlers.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. This is so cool.
There's a lot of food for the deer in these areas that have burned too, so it's
Yeah.
actually pretty
Like gourmet.
fertile for them. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Despite my anxiety about people thinking I'm a weirdo or startling people in the woods, that interaction went pretty smoothly. Now is a good time to point out that the way you look affects how people perceive you, and unfortunately, in our country, there's a lot of unconscious racism and conscious racism. If I had been perceived as a black man here in the woods, the interaction could have gone differently, or at least I would have been a lot more worried about what other people would think, and I might have to go through a lot of extra hoops just to show those people that I'm safe. And that's really unfair. I spoke with Timothy Joe, who is a birder, and African American birders have to do a lot of things to show white people that they're safe where they are, and even so, they are often harassed, or maybe the police are called on them, or they won't feel safe birding in certain areas because of discrimination. So let's remember that when we're in the field. So that's probably all the watercolor I need right there, and then I'll just wait for that to dry and do a couple, a little bit more ink on top. I'm gonna add some notes about this sort of transition zone here, and then I'm gonna get ready to move and go into the forest there and nature journal those whispering bells, which are one of the main flowers that I came here to nature journal. Oh, there's that deer again. I might try to capture its antlers so that I can use my binoculars better. I'm going to put my sunglasses up here. Yeah, because I'm going to do this technique where you hold your binoculars up and draw while looking through them. So you have to be stabilized. I made a whole video about this, but it doesn't work with sunglasses because you have to be able to look through your binoculars at an angle. Shoot, it's really blocked now. Okay, maybe I'll wait a second and make a little title. I could write down some questions about them, for example. Deer browsing in open area. What are they eating? These are going to be some big antlers on these ones, at least for California standards. Okay, so I caught a little bit of information about those deer, which is not the main thing I came for, but it's good to get that information. Even the information that you're not looking for is sometimes actually the most important. And so being open to what's salient and capturing that instead of just staying fixated on what you thought was going to be the important thing. Wow, that one has so many of those weird knobs on the... I wish I had a telephoto lens so that I could zoom the camera in on it. And it's interesting to note that the people walking by was not enough to scare those deer. They're less than 100 yards away, so that's an interesting bit of information. These deer are used to people, and in other places you go to, the deer would not let people get that close. All right, so this watercolor, I said I was gonna go right now, but this watercolor is dry enough for me to add just like another layer over it. So I'm gonna do that with my ink. I want to capture sort of a little bit more in that in the foreground. Adding stuff to the background right now would be probably a bad idea. So I want to give it the feeling. I'm going to use my black ink actually to make sure I capture this feeling of burnt. Right, that's good for a start. I'm going to move now. Let's see if I can get some footage of this lizard. Alright, so I found a spot with a ton of whispering bells. These are them right here in the foreground. And there's a little bit of poison oak too. But I'm gonna go ahead and nature journal some of these really cool flowers and do basically a species profile. If you don't know what a species profile is or how to do one, it's one of the most basic nature journaling techniques, and I have a video about it that I'll put a link to here. So I did a couple quick drawings, and now I'm gonna write down some questions and observations and use my words to nature journal these plants. They have a really nice smell to the plant. I've heard it described as medicinal, but usually when something's described as medicinal, it's not that pleasant as this. This is very gently medicinal smelling, almost like a toothpaste or something for kids. I have not seen any pollinators going to these. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add some watercolor, a little bit of watercolor. All right, look how easy that was. So I had, you know, about an hour and a half, a little bit less than an hour and a half out here, and I've got some like good metadata there. I've got a landscapito showing the zone title, some animal sightings, and one main fire following flower species. So wherever you live, if you live in California or you live somewhere else where fire has been coming through lately, or any other type of ecological change, go out there and just nature journal one plant. Spend an hour and a half out there, and you'll be able to capture some good information. Doesn't have to be pretty pictures. It's easy to just, you know, do some basic sketches of what you see. Even something like this with your timestamps is really important information about what's going on in the environment near you. It'll help you feel more connected to that place, help you learn more about that place, and provide a record and information for citizen science. All right, if you can't wait all the way until next week for the next episode of the Nature Journal Show, check out this episode here. Bye.